Hello, my name is Bonnie Burke and I work for Workforce Resource. Today's presentation on communication skills and professionalism is a part of our customer service series. If you attend all 3 customer service webinars, you will receive a certificate of completion from Workforce Resource. So you might say, so what good is a certificate, right? Well, you could put it on your resume, you can talk about it at a job interview, so it could be kind of valuable. So, communication skills and professionalism. The areas that I would like to talk about today and have you remember, we will focus on active listening, pretty important when it comes to communication, and then communicating with our body language and our facial expressions. Our face is a million words. It's just not written all over it, thank goodness. And then we're going to talk about handling criticism, because in the field of customer service, from time to time, a customer who is upset may take it out on you, and it might be the person who they are upset with when it's really you have nothing to do with it. So we'll talk about how to handle criticism and then professionalism. So active listening is where I want to start on this presentation. We spend more time listening than any other form of communication. Sometimes the average person spends up to 45% of a work day listening. Depends on what your job is, right? We listen at about 125 words a minute. That's pretty fast, 125 words a minute. But we think at about 600 words a minute. So what impact might this have? We think about 600 words a minute, and we listen at about 125 words a minute. Whoa. The impact that that can have is that you might be listening to a customer and yet your mind is probably racing. What do I have to do after work today? My spouse is doing this, my dog needs that, my cat needs this. Oh, I can't wait till this job is over. In the meantime, you haven't heard a word of what the customer has said. So we're going to talk about active listening today and how to help avoid our brains from overthinking. For an example, if the person said, you know what, I bought this computer 90 days ago and now it won't even turn on, to reflect back what they said, an example would be, so what I hear you saying is, you purchased the computer 90 days ago and now it doesn't turn on. It sounds a little redundant. However, when you reflect back to them, you are acknowledging that you've heard them, and yet you can then yourself be sure that you've heard them correctly. So encourage the person to express themselves verbally, acknowledge their feelings, and reflect back what the person just said. So listen actively to what the customer is really saying and feeling. Kind of a tough job. Active listening. How does it feel when someone is not listening to you? Frustrating, right? How do you know when someone is listening to you? Well, some of the things to look for is that they're nodding their head, they're smiling, and they're asking you questions that are related to what you've just said. So why is this so important? You know, why did Everyone Love Raymond even do a clip on it? Well, listening is so important at work. It could improve productivity, or it could make it worse. It could improve sales, or it could make it worse. My background is also manufacturing safety. Listening to my employees about their safety concerns was critical. I have a handout that I would like you to spend a few minutes going over. And this handout is an active listening self-assessment. So be honest, answer with the first thing that comes to mind, and don't give it too much thought, because usually your first response is the correct response. So based on your self-evaluation, are you a good listener? Be honest. Why or why not? For me, and I know it's probably true for you also, it depends on the circumstance. My poor husband, he thinks I'm a horrible listener. And sometimes he's right. Yet I truly hope at work I do a much better job listening. My husband forgives me. I'm not sure that's so easy at work. Active listening also happens on the phone. There are many jobs in our area for phone customer service positions. So if your job is to be on the phone all day long, taking orders, taking calls, it is so important to smile. Remember earlier I said when you're talking on the phone to smile, the customer can hear it in your voice? Speak slowly, yet not too softly. It's kind of frustrating when you can't hear when the customer can't hear you. Another tip for active listening on the phone is always have a pad and a notepad, or have your notepad up on your computer so that you can take notes as you're listening to that customer. And then also repeat back what the customer said. You could repeat back the order, repeat back their requirements. So speak slowly, enunciate, take notes, and repeat back to the customer. Just some few tips on how to listen actively on the phone. Have you ever had one of those phone calls and you're the person calling customer service and it's really hard to understand them? You think, I think they're not from United States. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Maybe they're not. They could be from India, they could be from Germany. It's the world of technology. So my little tip there is you can always ask to speak to someone else. Be polite. So I have another active listening handout that I want you to refer to. It's the steps of active listening. And granted, we're always not going to go through all 4 steps. However, they're brief, and I think once you practice it a time or two, it might become it might be a great habit. So the first step is to prepare yourself mentally. If you are going to be meeting with a customer, and that customer, and I'll just say for an example, if you are a car salesman, and you are about to make a big sale, you better be prepared mentally and not be thinking about what's for supper tonight, because you may just miss a really big sale. So whatever it takes, if it takes going to get a bottle of water, quick trip to the bathroom, cleaning off your desk, when possible, prepare yourself mentally. The other tip is to stay focused. Once again, sometimes it's really difficult to do. Most of our jobs, we have many, many responsibilities. So to stay focused, look the customer in the eye, do not take other phone calls, do not text, do not type. Stay focused on that customer and that individual interaction. The third step for active listening is to allow the speaker to finish. I don't know about you, but that's the one thing I have a hard time with when the speaker talks slow. I want to finish the sentence for them, you know what I mean? And yet it is extremely rude, even though you may know what they're going to say. So allow the speaker to finish, and then also to provide feedback. Repeat what they said, ask open-ended questions and not just yes and no questions. So to provide feedback. So hopefully those 4 steps that I gave you on that worksheet will be a good tool to help you improve your active listening skills. I really encourage you to go home today and practice that with a family member or a friend. When your customers are upset, you may have to ask them a few different questions to find out what are they really upset about. It may be the price. It may be that it was the wrong color and they get it home. It may be they stuck it in the washer and now it's shrunk 5 sizes and that wasn't on the tag. So take the time to get to know what the customer is upset about, and you can do that by using active listening skills. So, going back to active listening, I love this poster that I found on the internet. And the saying is from Doug Larson. And his quote is, active listening. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you'd have preferred to talk. Some people love to talk. And for them to listen and not talk can actually be very rewarding in any relationship. So Doug Larson's quote. So we've talked about communication and active listening, but another form of communication that I want you to think about is our body language. It is a silent yet very powerful means of communication. Now this picture that I found of these three women, you can probably look at them and your first judgment of how they're feeling is probably going to be correct. So the lady who's going like this, blame, judgment, bad, right? We probably all have had that finger wagging from our parents, but wow, you don't have to say anything, just point that finger. Very negative. The second picture of the lady who's standing like this, well, it's not quite winter in Wisconsin yet, and she may be just cold, but yet look at the look on her face. She looks very stern. She looks a little upset. So her eyes and her hands are telling you something. The third posture, and I've actually seen one of my clients do that, for her to stand like this with her legs spread apart is a stance of power. And so if someone's talking to you and their hands are on their hips and they have the stern look on their face, you know what they're saying, right? Well, the lady that I had in my office one day who was sitting like that, I asked her, I said, are you all right? Yeah, why? Well, for the past 30 minutes, you've sat like this. She goes, oh, I have a backache. This just makes me more comfortable. So it doesn't always mean that it's a power pose. Sometimes you just have to ask. So body language, another tip to watch for, and I have seen this for people who are very impatient. So if you have a customer and they come up to your till, or if they come up, and if you are working in hospitality in a hotel, for an example, and they're shifting back and forth with their feet. They're moving, they're swaying to the music, yet they're not swaying to the music. They're shifting. They're really being impatient or nervous. So shifting feet, looking at their feet, clicking their fingers shows a sign of being impatient and or nervousness. Don't have to say a word. Just if you see them shifting their feet, either that, maybe they have a backache too. Rubbing your jaw. I love this. Statistics have showed, and a lot of guys do this if they have a beard, but rubbing your jaw may indicate stress. I'm like, really? I guess I don't do that too often, I don't think. I'll have to pay attention. The other body language that I want to talk about is eye contact. So it shows the customer that you are interested in them. So look them in the eye, and if you see them shifting, rubbing their jaw, start asking some open-ended questions on how you can help. So body language, as a customer service employee, it'll be really important for you to understand some of the cues that their mouth isn't saying, but their body is. I'm going to talk about the importance of a handshake. I used to work for a gentleman, and part of my job was hiring. I helped out a little bit in HR. And part of my job in that short-term position was to hire employees. So this plant manager said to me, Bonnie, every person you interview, I want to shake their hand. I'm like, you're the plant manager? Aren't you kind of busy? Really? You sure? And we were so small, we didn't have a page. So I'm like, okay, I'll try to arrange it. So I would get the potential employee in there, and I said, hey, I want you to meet our plant manager. And our plant manager would extend his hand. He'd give a firm handshake. And if that person had a wimpy handshake, if that person didn't look him in the eye, if that person did not confidently say, "Hi, my name is Bob," I would get an email with a little thumbs down icon. Really, I'm not making this stuff up. He sincerely felt that you can tell a person's character by their handshake, and if they are confident, they will look you in the eye and they will smile and they'll speak clearly. They'll tell you what their name is. He'd say, "Okay, Bonnie, I trust your opinion, yet I'm going to tell you they're not going to work out." And statistically, oftentimes, he was right. I hated that. So the body language information that I've shared with you today is actually from an author whose name is Patty Wood. And believe it or not, her job title is, she is a body language expert. And the information came from a recent article in USA Today. Can you imagine your job is body language teacher or expert? This lady knows her stuff. So I want to talk a little bit next about not just our body, our face. So why is our facial expression so important? I really believe that I'm the type of person, and I'm sure we've all heard this saying, that I wear my emotions on my face, on my sleeves. I cannot hide when I'm sad. I can't hide when I'm upset. And in the same side, I can't hide it when I'm happy either. So facial expression can tell so much to that customer. So we can give subtle cues that give people an insight into what we're feeling and what we're thinking just by our facial expressions. Sometimes we don't have to say anything. Have you ever, as men who are listening today, have you ever heard, "I just got the look"? Well, that look is powerful, isn't it? Our faces are the most expressive part of our body. I know I talk a lot with my hands, but survey says our faces are far more expressive. There is this show on television that I absolutely love. It's called Brain Games, and it's put out by the National Geographic. This gentleman who is the commentator for this show, he's brilliant, and I love this brief presentation on facial expression.
Of course, the human face is pivotal to interpersonal communication. I mean, the face is seemingly one of the most expressive parts of the human body. In fact, there's all kinds of micro expressions that the face can do. There's these subtle cues that we can give that give people an insight into our minds. I mean, you might say that our face is the closest thing to turning our minds inside out. It's a way to glimpse the interiority of another person. You can literally read someone's face and glimpse their inner state. Of course, some people are more expressive than others. What's interesting about how we process faces is that it's a part of the brain called the fusiform gyrus that does what's called holistic perception. And so we take in a lot of different cues, a lot of different elements that we perceive, and then we create kind of a larger whole. We render a composite of what we're interpreting or perceiving in that moment. We tend to be attracted to symmetry, and there's all these elements of like the golden ratio and how they apply to faces. We seem to be primed and looking for genetic health in terms of what we're attracted to that seems to be on display in people's faces, which is absolutely fascinating. This episode is surely going to blow your mind, so keep your face tuned to the TV.
One of the things he said about our facial expressions is that our faces can express at least 21 distinct emotions. Really? I didn't know I had 21 emotions. But yet experts can pick that up. So I want you to look at this slide. It's a beautiful woman and this guy who looks a little quirky, right? But what do their faces say? Does the woman say with her face that she's sweet, that she's quiet? Does it say she's shy? What do you think her face says? The gentleman, does his face say that he's surprised, that he's a little silly? Who knows? Maybe he's a doctor and he just got good news. I'm not sure I'd be too confident with the doctor with that funny of a smile. But faces are very, very powerful in the occupation of customer service. The customers will look at us And just by that initial first 5 to 10 seconds, they're going to be able to tell, are we there to serve them, or are we really upset because maybe our boss just yelled at us? I have another set of faces that I'd like you to look at. So this picture of these 4 people and their big smiles, what does that tell you? And this other picture of this gentleman looks a little firm, don't you think? Not a smile on his face. It looks pretty serious. However, if that were my attorney, maybe I'd be okay with that. If that were my financial planner, maybe I'd be okay with that. I want those occupations to be serious, and I don't want them to be joking around with my money or my health. However, on the other hand, those 4 people who are smiling, they would make wonderful customer service people. They look upbeat, they look friendly. I would not hesitate to go up to them and talk and ask them about a product or get directions and assistance from them. I'm not sure the frumpy faced man, I don't think I would even approach him. So that's the other piece to be aware of with your facial expressions. If your face says, stay away, I'm going to bite you, just kidding, you're probably going to shop or buy something elsewhere. So facial expressions is something that's really difficult to constantly be aware of, yet in our jobs as customer service representatives, it is very important. The next step that I would like to talk briefly about is professionalism. So talking about our body language and our facial expressions, it all rolls into being professional. Oftentimes, I don't think of that person behind the customer service counter as a profession, yet they are. So what does it mean to be professional? Well, once again, I relied on dictionary.com for this definition. So dictionary.com says that it's a set of qualities, it's behaviors and skills that project a courteous, efficient, and competent demeanor. I have a hard time even saying that word. It's a set of qualities. It's not just one thing. It's our behavior. It's the skills that we possess. And remember, it said courteous. So I want you to think for a minute. Give me some examples, maybe even jot a few things down on your note page of what do you think professional behavior in customer service looks like? What are some of your customer service experiences that you walked away and felt, wow, that was really professional? I want you to think of it on the other end of the spectrum now, other end of the bell curve, I should say. Think of some unprofessional experiences that you have had with customer service. What did that look like? What did that sound like? So I have a few examples that I want to share with you. So some professional customer service, I feel, would be knowing how to do your job and doing it well. Well, when you're new to a job, it is absolutely fine to say, you know what, I am really sorry, I'm new, and I'm going to go get those answers for you. So if you're new, great to say that, but if you've been there 6 months, a year, and you still don't know the answers, chances are you need some additional training. Another trait of being professional is that they work hard to meet the customer's goals. It's not just as the waitress who brings you your food, leaves it on the table, and then an hour later brings you back the customer service check and hasn't checked on you at all. Ooh, that's unprofessional. Yet somebody who works hard to make that experience memorable or to help that customer meet their needs. Somebody who pays attention to the customers, who dresses appropriately. What do I mean by dresses appropriately? It depends on your job. Some jobs, appropriate dress is blue jeans and t-shirt. Absolutely fine. One of the restaurants that I went to this weekend, I could not believe how short those shorts were. Way, way, way too short. My adult sons kind of enjoyed them, but in the meantime, I was like, oh my goodness. Yet, it was at a bar, restaurant. I still don't think it was professional, but it was probably their dress code, to be honest with you. Punctual. What do I mean to be punctual? Well, definitely means if you're scheduled to work at 8 to be there at 7:55. Yet, if you tell a customer, I'm going to get this product to you within the next week, and if you can get it to them in the next 8 days, give them a call. You know, if something comes up, it could be an emergency, it could be things just didn't work out well. But being punctual is critical in our fast-paced world. And then also, to be respectful for the company that you work for. Have you ever been to and I'll think of an experience that I've recently had where the customer service person was complaining about their employer to me. I was like, I don't want to hear this. I want to hear that this is a great place. So being professional means that even though you may be having a tough time at work, maybe you're having a tough time with your supervisor right now, yet not to be expressing that to your customers is professional. So kind of on the other hand of that spectrum, unprofessional behavior, we'll just take what I said and roll it over to the other end as extreme. Somebody who is constantly late, somebody who is careless and sloppy, somebody who's maybe self-centered a little bit too much, somebody who can't take criticism constructively, instead takes criticism and then becomes very defensive or angry. So being professional in a role of customer service is very, very important. Why? It's showing respect. It's showing respect for not only your employer, but your employees and yourself. It shows confidence. If a person is dressed according to the company's dress code, if they act in a mature manner, it tells your customers that you're confident in what you do. You're confident in the service that you're providing. Others will trust you when you're professional, and hopefully you will have then a repeat customer. Professionalism can also increase sales, absolutely. Would I go back to that restaurant? Not by myself, I wouldn't. With my adult sons, they could probably drag me if they promised to buy lunch. So another thing that I feel why professionalism is important is the pride in ourself. I've talked about respect and pride, yet at the end of the day, we want to go home to our families and feeling really good about what we did, about what we do for our jobs, and what we do for our employers. Another tip that I want to talk about in today's presentation is how to remain professional when being criticized. The other day, I got this outrageous medical bill. I look at it and I wasn't yelling, but very close. And I called the customer service people and I kind of demanded an explanation of these charges. This woman on the other end, I know she could tell by the tone of my voice that I was really upset. In fact, I told her I was upset. And she was so calm. She was apologetic. She looked into it. She got back to me in a timely manner. By the time that phone call was over, I was apologizing to her for raising my voice. I still have this outrageous doctor bill, yet our interaction together with that one phone call really made me feel that this was a very professional interaction. She could have raised her voice back to me and blamed me for those services, yet she did not. She was very professional. So in that light, during criticism, try really hard not to take it personal. They may be upset with the product, with the service, and not you at all. Ask questions when being criticized. Find out how you can improve your performance. What would they like to see different? How can you improve this the next time that they come into your business? And also stick to the facts. Don't blame others. And that is so easy to do. Second shift did that. No, third shift did that. No, I think first shift. Yep, they did that. Wasn't me. Oh, no, never. So be really, really careful about blaming others because it is so easy to do, even if it is someone else's responsibility. You can be apologetic, you can be empathetic, but yet stick to the facts. Blaming others is a sign of unprofessionalism. So to remain professional when being criticized, be aware of the tone of your voice. I know that customer service person in the medical clinic knew by the tone of my voice that I was upset. But in the same regards, I could tell by the tone of her voice that she was trying to remain calm and professional. So if you are finding yourself standing on edge, you can hear the tone of your voice getting higher or lower. Do a quick check. Quick deep breath. Does it really matter? Can you respond to this professionally? Try to understand the other person's point of view. It may be that they're returning something that they saved for months for, that they were given a gift that now it's defective, that maybe they were given something that they really didn't want and couldn't tell the person who gave it to them. So try to understand the customer's point of view, especially when they're upset. It's a little difficult. And the word that I'm trying to explain is to be empathetic. I understand. That sounds frustrating. Don't brush it off. Because if we say, you know what, that customer is just a jerk. We don't need them. There's several other customers where that came from. Remember we talked earlier with social media, how easy the word gets on the street, so to speak? So, and the other piece that I really encourage you to do is try to avoid thinking that you're always right. Do you know anybody like that? They're always right, regardless. The customer can pick up on those emotions right away. Remember our faces? It expresses that pretty easy. So, a couple of other tips I want to share with you when managing difficult situations. I would really encourage you to step back and just say, I apologize for. As you note, I did not say, I'm sorry. One of my students said that their past employer had told them that they never, ever wanted them to say, I'm sorry, to a customer. And the first time I was like, really? Really? And they said, no. It's so easy to say, I'm sorry. Our kids say it all the time. We hear it all the time. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But to say, I apologize for, and then fill in the blank. It sounds more professional. It sounds like you've given it more thought. And so as a result, I try to say, I apologize instead of I'm sorry. It might just be a preference of words, yet try it sometime. Another word to say is empathize. That has to be frustrating. Explain to me what happened. I apologize that that has happened to you. Two words that I'm going to encourage you to stay away from in a difficult conversation is avoid saying the word you. You should have brought that back earlier. You should have had the oil changed 1,000 miles ago. You should have called me. And when you say the word you, it almost instantly puts the person on defense. You can almost see it in their body language. It sounds accusatory. So instead of saying you, use I statements. I understand, I can see, I hear you. Another 3-letter word to stay away from is why. Why did you? Why did that happen? Why were you late? The why and the you are two very simple little words that can just almost automatically make a bad situation really bad. So 2 easy words to try to stay away from. And when possible, take immediate action. If a customer is really upset, if you can resolve it right away, apologize, it's going to diffuse that situation. However, the next tip that I want to give you is know when to call for assistance. If it's a difficult situation and that customer is getting more than angry, if your gut is telling you that this situation is getting out of hand, know when to call for assistance. Don't take chances. Know what your company's policy is for calling for help. No job warrants us being heroes, so know when to call for assistance. The other piece that I want you to think about in those difficult situations. Is the customer always right? You might be saying, no, they're not always right. Yet one of my students said, and I loved this response, she said, no, the customer's not always right, yet it is our job to help them feel that they are. Because who wants to leave any interaction by feeling that you're wrong, that you made an error? So I honestly believe the customer's not always right, but it's our job to help them feel as though they are. Pretty interesting. So, quick review. I want you to think about this statistic and see what you learned. Remember I said that we listen at about 125 words per minute, but we think about 600 words a minute? Why does this sometimes make active listening difficult? I'm going to give you the answer, and I encourage you to jot it down, because we are thinking ahead about what we want to say and not listening to what the customer is saying. It's human nature. It's how our brains are wired. And so to stay focused, to use active listening, is one way to try to shut that inner words off, or at least turn the volume down. Another review question that I want you to think about is, what are the 4 steps that we talked about for active listening? Number 1, prepare yourself mentally. Get rid of the distractions if possible. Turn off that cell phone. Turn off that monitor if possible. Your job may not allow it. Stay focused. Lean in, make eye contact, nod your head, and allow the speaker to finish. I'm really bad with this in my personal life. I hope and I feel I'm better in my professional life with that. And then clarify and provide feedback, making sure that you have understood what that customer has said. And sometimes it sounds a little redundant, but remember I said to repeat back to them word for word what they've just said, and it's giving that customer a vote of confidence that you've understood what the situation is. We talk with our body language and with our facial expressions. What one thing can you do that will help your customer remember you? Remember I said about that handshake? Well, I don't know too many customer service people that do it. Yet I know many, many salespeople that do it. So this handshake, the introduce yourself, the smile, the look in the face, the look in the eyes, easy thing to do. However, keep in mind also that some cultures do not like the handshake. So you have to know who are your customers, what culture are they, and if it's a culture that's very uncomfortable with looking in the eye and handshake, change that behavior if possible based on what you know about the different culture. I have another review question that I hope you took from this presentation. If a customer is upset and starts to become angry, what can you do? Run! Just kidding. Apologize. Stay calm. And sometimes it's the difficult piece. Check the tone of your voice. Make sure it's not either going really, really high or very, very firm and low. Avoid saying these 2 destructive words. You and why. Why did you can take a bad conversation into a destructive conversation? And know when to call for assistance. Absolutely. Know what your company's policy is. If it's not a part of your new employee orientation, ask, what is our policy if a customer is raging, angry, swearing, throwing? What are the steps that I need to take? So one last review question. What are some things that you can do to demonstrate professionalism? Well, number 1, dress appropriately for your job. You may have a day like I did this morning. My alarm, I have no idea what happened. I was supposed to get up at 5 a.m. I was out of bed and getting ready at 4 a.m. I looked at the clock after I showered, after I was dressed, and I'm like, and then I looked down at how I was dressed. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I have my pants on straight. I am not a 4 a.m. person. I have no idea what was wrong. Yet I did check to make sure I was dressed appropriately. Follow the company's rules. Absolutely, very important with professionalism. And then speak politely, speak slowly and clearly, and then be courteous. Remember the simple thank you, the simple come again, the simple, hey Bob, I'm glad you're here today. How can I help? But we've talked about professionalism, we've talked about body language, we've talked about active listening and how to handle difficult situations. I hope that from today's presentation, you can practice a few of these skills this afternoon or this evening with your family. Build those skills because some of them are not natural to us. Sometimes we have to practice these skills until we can do it without even thinking about it. We want our customers to leave happy. We want our customers who walk through our job centers feeling better than when they arrived. How do we do that? A number of things. I hope we've helped your day today be a little bit more pleasant than when you came in. And I hope some of the videos that we've talked and showed today have brought a smile to your face. I hope you can stay tuned. We have one more webinar on customer service. And if you attend that one, you'll get a certificate at the end. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.